guys, we are here with Dani Fernandez. You may have heard of her from an awesome podcast episode called Nerdificent. And also, you may have seen her around at Comic Con. And she has commentated for IGN, VH1, Collider, Screen Junkies, and also has written for Full Screen and Geek and Sundry and Funimation and much more. So, how are you doing today?
Oh, good. Yeah. That's it's always funny when I hear all the things that I've done. I'm like, did I do that? Oh yeah, I was over there. Yeah, I'm at Nerdist now. I have a show at Nerdist. Two shows technically over there. I have one called Natural Selection and another called Fangirling. And then I have a show at How Stuff Works, Nerdificent, with Iffy Wadiwe, who's a really funny comedian.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of hustling all
Right?
over the place.
Seriously, you're doing so much more, and every time I follow you on your Instagram and Twitters, like you have so many great opportunities that are happening for you, and I'm so happy for you, especially for a Latin woman. I mean, I feel like for our, from our background of being a Latin person, like we're still struggling to be like successful, like just getting our names out there.
Yeah, it's definitely been difficult. I feel like I'm lucky to have a community that kind of looks out for me. I feel my friends and I all look out for each other, and that's something that I don't know if all communities do that. But I feel like if you have like kind of these like nerds of color that are all, if I can't make something, I'll recommend a friend and vice versa. And I think that we're very aware when we're not present on panels, and we're very aware when we're not present when there's no people of color on channels and at some of these studios. And so I think it's like a team effort.
Yeah.
I would say to get us for all of us to be present the way that we are.
Yes. And it's very hard. I mean, for like all culture, I mean, we're now finally getting, finally getting presented the way who we are kind of, but it's still like, there's still faults and stuff, and we're still working on building that community stronger. And I see that happening now.
Yeah, I agree. It's still we're still not as present as, I would like. I think the last numbers were that Latinas only made up like 7% of all media.
Yeah.
That's so low. I think that people see us and they think, they might see one or two people who are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably how people feel of me, to be honest.
Yeah.
At some of the channels is like, well, they have Dani, and it's like, yeah, but there's just one of me, and there shouldn't be. I feel like a lot of times there's only, like, say, one Latina in a room, one Latina at a channel, like that is, you never have two. And that's something that is afforded to, I feel, white hosts. There's 2 or 3 white hosts, and there might be 3 white women or something like that, where it's not really, and the same goes for other demographics as well. I never see like 2 Asian people on a panel. Rarely do I see 2 Black people on a panel. And so that, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of the one and done, like we did our, we got our one and we're good in case anyone calls us out. And so I do hope to see that, as much as it is changing. It's hard for me, I guess, being on this side of it, seeing like how easy it is, I would say.
Yeah.
So I still feel like we have a long ways to go, and just that the representation that I've seen, I feel like there's absolutely no excuses. It's, going into 2019, and I still see they'll announce a diversity panel and there won't be any people of color on it. And I just find that insane. So, yeah.
So before you got into this career, you attended at University of Texas, Austin?
Yeah, I was at UT. We just lost a big game yesterday. I think we were in the Big 12 championship against OU, our rivals.
Mm-hmm.
We lost. I used to go to our football games. They were super fun. I really enjoyed going to UT. I wish I had partied more, to be honest. I did not party as much as I should.
Mm-hmm.
I partied, but UT is a really hard school to get into. And I think because I went to school in Texas, like I went to public school in Dallas, outside of Dallas, and UT takes the top 8%, I believe now. And so it's really hard.
Wow.
You have to be pretty freaking smart and good.
Oh yeah, because you were working at a cardiac rehab, mm-hmm. right? And what made you decide to change your career from that and go into comedy?
Well, I was originally a journalism major at UT because I always enjoyed writing. I enjoyed writing, and I'd always been into creative writing even when I was in high school. I think I was published in a magazine, and poetry magazine, when I was in high school. So writing was very much a part of who I was and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I needed a way to make money because I paid my way through school, and I had to work while I was going to school. And I became a fitness instructor because a lot of my friends were.
Yeah.
And some of my friends that were in fitness ended up majoring in kinesiology, which is exercise science. And I was like, oh, this is much more fun than what I'm doing. Like, I'm having to contact my senators and write papers, and y'all are training with the football team. I'm like, that is not a bad deal.
Right.
So, yeah, they were like, and at UT, some of our coaches, our swim coaches, were like on the they were coaches for the Olympic team, and like UT, I mean, this is probably no shocker to anybody, but a lot of the money that goes to UT goes to the sports program.
Oh yeah.
Same with any like Big 12 or Pac-10 school or whatever. It's going to them. So the football players and the basketball players all had cool track suits, and I'm like, this is way more cool than what I'm doing. I'm just going to study and work out with them. And so that's what I ended up doing. And I originally thought what I could do with my degree is write in like fitness magazines and stuff. That is like the smallest, most niche thing that I could do that anyone could do, is getting a degree just to write for a certain type of magazine. I don't recommend doing that, especially because magazines aren't doing so hot.
Yeah.
But, and so what happened was I had to do an internship, and I was offered a internship at Baylor Heart Hospital, which is in Dallas. And so I did an internship there, and then they offered me a job. So I stayed there, but I still missed writing. I still missed that side of me.
Yeah.
And I was going through a particularly dark period of my life, and I kind of started to rely on comedy, like writing more jokes and sketches and more comedic writing to kind of, I don't want to say it's therapy, because to me, therapy is therapy. Like, I'm in therapy and that's therapy. But comedy can be therapeutic. And so that's how I fell into it. I had some comedians that encouraged me to pursue it. And I honestly don't think if they hadn't reached out and been like, no, you're funny, you need to try this, I don't know if I would have.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I switched into it. But originally it was just something that I did, I think, to distract myself from some of the pain that I was going through.
Well, that's good. So how was, when you first got up on the stage to do stand-up, how was that for you, doing for the first time?
Gosh, the first time I went to a couple of open mics, and it's really funny because I feel like if you go to open mics, like, stand-up seems scary until you see other people doing it, like people that are starting out too, and you're like, oh, well, I could do that. And like, I'm definitely better than that guy who's doing like mom jokes. So yeah, so I went to a couple of open mics. I remember Evan Kessler, who is a comedian. He took me to my first couple of open mics, and then I had a couple of my friends that kind of stayed with me and went. It is terrifying, especially because open mics, you're not really getting the reaction that you would if you were doing it in a comedy club, you know, with people that are drinking and there to have a good time.
Yeah.
Open mics are kind of like hellholes with just a bunch of other comedians that are watching you work out your stuff. But everyone has to kind of do their time there. And so I would say I spent, a couple of months working stuff out. And then I had a show. My friend had a show in the Belly Room at the Comedy Store. And it was a very friendly, like, just chill vibe. And I remember that was the first time I, like, really did a set and did well. And I just was like, oh, crap, I guess I got to do this now. I think if I had bombed, I would have been like, I'm never doing this again. I don't know if I would have said never, but I definitely would have been traumatized. But I think because I had a really good set and my friend tweeted, I remember a couple of comics tweeted, like, I'm so glad people got to see you do stand-up. And because I'd always just been writing.
Yeah. And
I hadn't really thought about doing stand-up. But I got a job at the Ice House Comedy Club, which is in Pasadena, here in Los Angeles. And it's a really great club. It was like Joe Rogan's home club for a while. And I met a lot of mentors there. And so that was my first job in LA. And that was back when I just wanted to be a writer. And they encouraged me the comics that were there encouraged me to do stand-up.
That's pretty awesome.
So yeah. Brad Williams was one of them. Brad Williams was one of my mentors who thought I was just really funny, a funny writer. And he was like, you should do this. And he was a great mentor because every time I wanted to give up, Brad would just be like, good, give up. That's what you should do. Like, you should just give up. You know, everyone wants you to give up anyways.
Yeah.
And it made me so mad. And I was just like, no, I'm not going to give up. I hate that he would say that. But it's true. It was like, you know, I'm competition for other people. People do want you to drop out. People don't want people to move here.
Yeah.
And so he'd always say, good, just give up. And it would make me so mad. Like, no, you know what? It was like such reverse psychology. But I love Brad.
Well, really good reverse psychology.
Yeah. Yeah. Really great reverse psychology. And to this day, he remains one of my good friends. Who had a lot of advice, which he would probably laugh at because he probably thinks that he is not a sage, you know, elder. But to me, he actually did end up having a lot of advice in between the dick jokes that he makes.
That's pretty awesome. And do you still do stand-up here or there?
I don't really do stand-up as much anymore, like straight stand-up. I do comedy shows. So I do like storytelling or panels. Like, I was on Love It or Leave It at the Improv, and that was crazy because their fans, like that, the Pod Save America people are just, their fans are crazy. It was totally packed and sold out. That's really fun because I get to be on stage and making people laugh. I still do sketch and improv. Stand-up is something that I feel requires so much of your so much of your energy and attention that I don't know if it's something you can do casually. I know people do try to do it casually. But for me, I moved here to write and act, and I found that doing stand-up until 1 a.m. and then having to wake up and try to, you know, make my meetings and everything at 8 a.m. There are people that do it. I have no idea how they do it.
Yeah.
I think to me, the reason why I've gotten so successful this year is because I narrowed down to like 2 things that I want to do, and as opposed to doing all the things. I think a lot of times people want to do all the things. And sometimes it feels like you're treading water as opposed to just narrowing down 2 things. Like my ex, who I'm still really great friends with, he just does 2 things. He's an amazing stand-up comic. He's so funny. He sells out like, I just watched, I know that he headlined at Los Globos Theater. He sold out that. Like but all he does is stand-up and host, and that's it. He doesn't want to write. He has no dream to be a writer, whereas that is my dream. And so, yeah, I think it's just being honest with yourself about what you want. Like, you know, definitely testing and experimenting, but then if it feels like you're doing all the things, take a step back.
Kind of focus on certain things first, or take it like, you know, just don't burn yourself out, right? Definitely. So, what have been like your greatest struggles while doing comedy and being a writer and also being an actress as well?
Greatest struggles, failure, not taking things personally. I'm a perfectionist, and so everybody is going to bomb. Everybody is going to bomb. Bomb, like famous comedians bomb when there's, even now, still veteran ones that have been doing it for 20 plus years can still bomb when they're trying to figure out a joke or how to make a joke work when they're working out stuff. And, I am perfectionist, and it sits with me for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's been difficult.
Is it hard now for comedians to even like say like, you know, just to write a joke without trying to offend anyone? Like, to the point, it's like, it's really hard to like, for comedians, how it was back then where they said anything, but it's like you came in to like, they were just telling jokes. It's not really to offend you. It's just, you know, just to make a laugh about certain things.
Yeah, I feel like comedians today, you know, but a lot of them have gotten smarter. So I would say it's not necessarily that they're worried about offending people. It's just that those jokes can kind of be hacky. Those jokes, sometimes those jokes are the lowest hanging fruit, and sometimes people like the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
But what I've seen is that because there's so many people in comedy, there's like such a comedy boom that's been happening the last like 5 years, and now I feel like it's just going to pop. It's like so many people that have joined that I feel you have to be smarter. You have to be, you can't go for the easiest joke.
Yeah.
You know, we've all heard the racist jokes or sexist jokes or whatever, and those jokes have been told for decades.
Yeah.
Now it's like, who can make a smarter joke? And honestly, treat your audience like they're smart. That's something that, that people would tell you in writing as well. Assume that your audience is smart. And that's what when I watch, I don't know if you've ever watched like a horror film or a thriller, and it's like it could have been better if they didn't kind of already tip your hat to who did it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, well, I would have figured that out. You didn't have to tell me like explicitly. That's how I feel. That's how I feel sometimes about jokes, is you kind of want to arrive there together, not like you spoon feeding it to them.
Yeah. You want...
I'm sure there's people. Yeah, I'm sure that there's people that would disagree with that. What I see with that is a lot of monologue jokes with late night hosts and stuff. Like if I look at Conan, when I would write monologue jokes when I was submitting packets, it's like you take a setup and you look at like the first two punchlines that come into your head, and you kind of scrap those and you go with like the third. What is the one that not everyone else is going to go for? Yeah. Like it's really easy to do a Donald Trump joke about his hair.
Yeah.
What is another joke? You know what I mean? What is a better joke that people aren't going to think of? Because then you'll get an actual laugh, not just yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
But like a real, oh shit, I didn't think of that. That's kind of what you want to go for. Yeah.
Great. And you've also had like a great opportunity with Disney recently. You have appeared in the Ralph Breaks the Internet. So how did that feel? Like now you see yourself like in a Disney movie.
It's still surreal. It's so weird. I tweeted the other day, and I kind of apologized for retweeting everyone that's been writing me. I haven't even retweeted everyone, but I've retweeted some of the people that have been writing me when they see me. And, you know, I apologize, but I was like, also a new Disney film is coming out. Mary Poppins is about to come out, and everyone's going to move on to the next thing. And then The Lion King. And, you know, it's just like, I'm trying to enjoy this moment because it's passing by so quickly. And it kind of felt like this movie would never come out. When I got hit up, it was this summer. They hit me up to do it. And then, you know, I hosted with them at New York Comic Con, and then I hosted with them. They did a global press conference, and I hosted that. It was just like, this film is just, it's just perpetually, it just felt like Christmas or something, you know, like it just felt like it was like, when is it here? When is it going to be here? And so, it's really great and cool. I still don't know if it's set in, and maybe it never will set in that I'm a Disney character, but, it was a great opportunity, and I'm so glad that people were excited about it.
Yeah, it's like a huge dream, especially for like everyone's grown up into a Disney film and always hopes like, oh, hopefully I could be like drawn into like a Disney movie or a cartoon, and then like it actually happened for you, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's surreal. It's crazy.
Now, do you get like a lot of family members saying like, "Oh, we saw you," and it's like, what they say to you when you told them that you're gonna be in a Disney movie?
Yeah, I kind of didn't my family is a little bit different than me in that they're not in this industry, and so I don't always tell them everything going on. Because they also don't always know, like they're not up to date on a lot of things. I think if I told them I'm in Wreck-It Ralph, they'd be like, "What's Wreck-It Ralph?" They'd be like, okay. I think I did tell my mom, and she was like, "Oh, cool, that's nice." I think I showed her a picture of the character, and she's like, "Oh yeah, she looks like you." And then I got a text from her 2 days later, and was like, "Dani, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you were saying that you're in the movie." And it's been cool. I got to take my niece, and that was really neat. I took my niece to see it opening day, and we pointed me out, and she was very excited. She's 3. But the thing she was most excited about was Moana.
Yeah.
Because when Moana came on the screen, she was like, "Moana!" That's what she calls her. "Moana!" Even though all the other princesses were standing there, she didn't care about anyone else. She just screamed about Moana. So that was, and I gave her a bunch of toys too that I had been sent. I got sent from Entertainment Earth. Actually, they're a toy company, sent me like a ton of Ralph toys.
Nice.
So I got to share those with her. And then I got like a text from my cousin. He's 17. I think I got a text from him at like midnight because he had gone with his friends to see the movie. And it just said in all caps, "You're in this movie." So I was like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't tell everyone." So it is kind of crazy. You think that you would tell everyone, but, you know, I think it's a bigger deal to people that are that like follow up with movie stuff
Yeah.
and follow up, like, you know, sometimes we have family members that like haven't seen a movie in like 2 years.
That's true.
That's kind of like my family. So
That's pretty awesome. I mean,
yeah.
that was such a. When I heard about you being in Disney, I was like, holy crap. I'm like, that's fucking awesome. I was like so happy for you, especially
Oh,
being in
thank
a Disney
you.
movie.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No
It was
problem.
really cool. I love Ralph. I always call him my barefoot boyfriend. So
That's awesome. And you host a nerdy podcast called Nerdificent. So how's that
mhm.
going? What made you go to, you know, um, make that podcast?
Well, Iffy and I actually, we decided to team up because it felt like we were the only two comedians that were like tweeting Dragon Ball Z
Mm-hmm.
memes like on Facebook. And so people would always tag the two of us. And that was before we were really friends. I think we had done a show or two together at UCB. And he was like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? And I was like, yeah, I was actually just thinking of doing a Dragon Ball Z podcast. And so we had a Dragon Ball Z podcast called Krillin' It.
Mm-hmm.
And we just rewatched DBZ, and we bring in comedians or directors and people and have them talk about their favorite episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It was extremely time consuming. DBZ has like 200 plus episodes.
Yeah.
So
They've been going on
you're kind of
forever.
talking about the same, you're kind of talking about the same thing because, you know, 10 episodes could go by and maybe one new thing happened.
Yeah.
So
Because he's always eating and always fighting and always training.
Right. That's exactly it. And so we put the podcast on hiatus, and and then How Stuff Works reached out to us and said, hey, do you guys want to do a podcast here about all nerdy things, not just Dragon Ball Z? We're like, yeah, sure. So we did a pilot episode for them. I think it was on Comic-Con. We did a pilot episode on Comic-Con talking about the past, present, and future, and they liked it, and then we did more. So I think what Iffy and I wanted to do was taking a different subject each week and really diving into it, but coming at an approach where anybody could be involved. Because I feel like we deal with, both being people of color and me being a woman, we deal with a lot of gatekeeping of like, this is mine. Oh, you didn't watch it back in the 80s? Well, you're not a real fan.
Yeah.
Like I dealt with that a ton of you're not a real fan crap constantly. And it's just like, I can't be faulted for my age. I can't be faulted for my class either. Like I feel a lot of gatekeeping is a class issue. It's like, who has the money to buy comics, to have an HBO Go account, to have a Netflix account, to have so you're watching Game of Thrones and you're watching Marvel Netflix and you're watching the CW and you're watching, you have to have money to be able to be a nerd.
It's a lot of expenses. I mean, like every week something's coming out, and then you have your monthly statements for all these shows that you want to try to keep up. I mean, I always try to keep up with a lot of series, but like they're always coming up with a new show, like almost like every summer or fall. And it's like, have you seen it? It's like, no, I'm trying to finish this one series. And it's like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I would say, and have a healthy life. And as creators, because Iffy and I are both writers and performers, we don't want to just consume everyone's work. We want to make our own work. And that's a lot of people, I think, that are independent artists and stuff as well. And whatever you do, whether it's a podcast or you do, you draw on the side or whatever, like you need to have an outlet so you're making your own stuff and not just consuming other people's stuff 24/7.
Yeah.
And so that's another part of it is like, I actually don't want to consume everything. So I feel like we wanted to remove some of the gatekeeping and just be like, look, if you're just hopping in or you've always wanted to hop in and you want to know about Miles Morales or you want to know about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, we're going to give you a quick rundown on what it is and where it's going.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what how we started our podcast.
Which is pretty cool and very entertaining because you give like a background of like a TV show or any kind of like Sailor Moon that you guys did and Twilight Zone and like how the history happened with that. And then you guys talk about your favorite episodes and your favorite characters. And pretty much like what you do as kids when you're watching the show. So it's pretty awesome. I mean, you really keep like the audience connected and make them feel like, oh yeah, I did that too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Do you have a favorite episode on your podcast?
My favorite episode of Nerdificent. Gosh. You know, I did like the Halloween one. We covered the Halloween franchise with Lucy Tomlin Brenner because she was just so well versed. Those are my favorites, are people who are so, another one was our Buffy one with Danielle Radford. And I think our most listened to episode was with Hector Navarro. He's a host at DC Daily. And we ran down the entire MCU, and it's our most listened to episode.
Yeah.
Like, he's just so smart, but funny. He also has a comedy background, and I don't know. I just like people that are really passionate. Sometimes we'll get people that hit us up about our podcast and like, everyone wants to be on it. I'm like, that's cool. I want to be on it. And it's like, okay, but you know, we have rabid fans. So like the conceit of our podcast is Iffy and I don't always have to know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That way we always have an expert there. We always have an expert. Like we had Riley Silverman, who's an expert on Doctor Who. She came in and everyone was like, of course Riley was going to be on this because she's a known expert like in our community on it.
Yeah.
So she could teach us. I haven't really watched Doctor Who.
And you give like the questions that people are listening want to know.
Yeah. And she breaks down everything. And so I wouldn't be able to do that because I didn't grow up with it.
Yeah.
But sometimes people want to be on the show and then they don't really know. Like, I think they think it's more casual than it is. We want it to be casual, but it definitely has listeners that know their shit. And so
you kind of have to be on your game.
Yeah. So I try to tell people, like, you know how I know about Dragon Ball Z? Like, that's the level that I need people to know about their stuff.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I mean, I always have like people who are like ask me about like a podcast and like they want to start one, and it's like you have to have your material ready for each podcast. You have to do like your research, and you can't just go on like, you know, like just go out there and just speak your mind. You have to have like a list of what you're going to talk about so you won't like, you know, babble on random things, and or else you're going to be everywhere, you know? And also if you're comfortable with the mic, and people don't realize once they like get it into their head that they're going to be recorded, they don't really like come up with a good like conversation, you know? They're kind of like overthinking things and it doesn't come out as natural. So it's like kind of, I always try to tell people, like, if you want to start a podcast, you have to be really serious about it. You have to write your segments. You have to be really comfortable, get used to talking into the mic and being recorded. And I mean, it's a lot of work. It's not like, you know, okay, I'm going to just do this one and done. You have to do the edits and everything. I mean, a lot of work comes with it.
Yeah, editing takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I used to edit our podcast back when we were doing our DBZ one. And consistency, I would say, is the biggest thing, is that people forget. And people say, like, how do I build up a following? And it's like, well, you got to be consistent. Like, you got to put it out like every Tuesday, every Sunday, whatever it is, whenever your drop is. Because once you develop once you have some listeners, they're going to be expecting it. And if you kind of drop off, or it's like, well, I don't do a podcast this week, or maybe I'll do one in a month, or, you know, it's like, no, you need to be, we have a podcast come out every single week.
Yeah.
And even though we are both stupidly busy, like, it is hard sometimes for both of us to even be in the same spot. And I remember once we asked how stuff works, and we were like, can we just, I think I had if he was out of town, I was running to something, like I had a film, and I was like, can we just do a rerun of an episode? And they were like, no. So we had to come in, I think on a Saturday or something, and like knock out a podcast. But it's, you have to hold yourself accountable, or have someone holding you accountable.
Yeah, it's real dedication.
It really is, yeah.
And just to like, just keeping it fresh as well. You know, you don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over. So.
Yeah.
So, and going back to you, what are your goals now? Like, what are you working on, and what do you want to achieve for yourself?
What do I want to achieve? I would love to. The career that I look up to the most, I would say, is Issa Rae, where I'm like, I would love to write something that I can also be in. I don't necessarily have to be the star. That would be cool. But I would love to everything that I write, every script that I write has a version of myself in it. That's also because I was told in screenwriting class that, like, if you want to see yourself, you need to write yourself.
Yeah.
And that always frustrated me because I'm like, well, they could have more Latinas if they wanted to, and then I'm like, fine, I'll just write it then.
Yeah.
So literally every script, everything that I pitch has a Latina that's like me in it, and that's also just a plan B so that I can play. Then if they're asked, like, who do you see playing this? I was like, oh, me. So right now, I'm currently working on a show that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about, but it's going to come out. And it's a cool, like, sci-fi-ish fantasy show that's really cool. And yeah, so I'm acting in that, and that's great. And I have some of my Iffy's going to be in it, I believe. He plays one of the characters, so that is a thing that I'm working on. I'm currently trying to pitch and sell some scripts. Hopefully that takes off. And yeah, it's just constant. As good as my year has looked, a lot of people don't see, like, the amount of rejection that we have to go through. I know Iffy does. I do. I would say people see, like, 1% of my life, which is a good percent. Because I'm not going to be like, hey, I didn't get the audition that I went to. But I remember, I think last week I did, like, or the week before I did, like, 6 VO auditions in a day, and I didn't get any of them. So that happens. You know, and so it's cool. It's like, well, you're a Disney character, and but you're at this channel and you're doing this, and, you know, you're writing in this, and it's cool. But, like, people don't see the amount of rejection. It can be a lot, especially when you get something that's really cool that you really want to be a part of. And it's like, oh man, and you kind of, like, you can't really fantasize about it too much, you know. But it's like, oh, this would be so great if I got this, and then you don't get it. And so,
but it makes you work harder for the next, you know, the next opportunity, you know?
I think it's just persistence, but I think it's just persistence and a tiny bit of luck. I mean, I've realized this out here. I wish I could say it's just hard work, but a part of it, I think, is knowing people or having people that are going to recommend you.
Yeah.
And luckily I have friends that recommend me for things and vice versa. But yeah, there's a lot of rejection.
Yeah. I mean, we all go through it, like every day, but we still, like, fight for what we want.
Yeah. I think it's, if you feel like you couldn't do anything else, that's how I feel, is like, well, I can't give up, because I'd be even more depressed if I gave up. So I'm just going to handle this, you know, and keep going. But sometimes it can, I mean, I'm human, just like everyone else. It can really knock you down.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my stuff, like I was saying, it has its, you know, Latinx shows, and it's hard dealing with studios that don't necessarily, it's not at the forefront of their mind, or it's not a priority for them. And to me, that's what hurts more than, like, me auditioning for something, not getting it, is me really wanting to see these shows come to life, not just because I'm creating them, but because I really think that we need them.
Yeah.
And we make up such a huge portion of the population. And yeah, so that's what I would say. That's the hardest part of the rejection, is those passion projects where you're like, this means something to me. And I'm getting there. So hopefully, you know, we can revisit this conversation in a year, and I'll be like, I sold the thing. It exists.
Yeah. So I'm sure, like, you're going to do really well. And, like, I mean, you did so much within this year, and you're finally getting, like, things you, like, you've worked hard for, and you're getting, like, you know, your, what's that word? You're just getting all your stuff that you wanted accomplished, pretty much. It seems like, from what I've seen, what you have posted, and I get, like, super excited for you, and it's pretty awesome for what you're doing, and you're, like, just giving, like, just giving nothing but positive, and, like, sometimes you do, like, say, like, things that are, like, kind of put you down, but you always rise up from it, from what I see.
Yeah, thank you. I do try to share, I guess it's kind of a mixture of sharing, you know, my life is not all pretty. Like, on Instagram, it looks really pretty. And so I try to remind people, I think it's important. I think it's important too for artists and people that are starting out or struggling, or just not, even if they're not artists, is important for people to be like, oh, okay, it's not just all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Like, it's, So I try to share about depression because it means it's such a huge part of my life, and it's a huge part of my writing. And I write about characters that deal with mental health issues because I deal with those.
Yeah.
And so I try to be pretty honest and open about it. And it can be rough, and my comedy can come from a dark place, but I do feel it's important to talk openly about that, because I think it would help me if I saw the people I looked up to talking openly about it, because I'm like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, they have to go through it too.
And then like people also like, they're thankful for that, because they always feel, they're the only ones going through that, and like no other person who they look up to or are inspired by, they think they live the perfect life, but they really have their own, closets that they try to, hide from like society and their fans.
Yeah.
But but anyways, thank you for so much for coming on my show. It was great talking to you and like talking about your career and your inspirations and your goals and like what you went through. I can't wait to like Ralph Breaks the Internet comes out on DVD so I can just buy that.
Oh yeah. I need to buy it too. I don't own many DVDs anymore. But
I know, right?
I need to hit up the Rich and Phil are the ones that directed. I need to hit them up and see if I can get like a cell of my character. I don't
that'd be
know.
so awesome.
They probably are like cleaning out all of it, because now they're they've moved on to like Frozen and all the other things they're doing. So I'm like, hey, before you clean out all the drawings, can I get my character so I can frame her? I'll
frame
hit them up once it dies down. Yeah.
All right. But thank you so much for stopping by. And it was great talking to you. And I can't wait to see more of what you're doing. And where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, I'm at Ms. Dani Fernandez. It's MsDaniFernandez on Instagram and Twitter. I think that's all that I have. I gave up Snapchat a long time ago. I was like, I'm only going to have 2.
Yeah.
I'm going to have 2, and these are my 2.
All right, great.
So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Okay,
it's a pleasure talking to you. All right.
Yeah, you too. Okay, bye.
Bye.